All right, everyone. Now we have to talk about what's happening in Gaza. Of course, the other day we had an update that over 20,000 people have now died in Gaza as a result of fighting there. You've got thousands of dead Israelis now as well, IDF and civilian. You have still a bunch of hostages in Gaza, which is pretty bad because they're currently actively flooding the substructures underneath Gaza, which at some point is going to really fuck up with the foundations of those buildings and tunnels and probably cause some of them to collapse. So, yeah, there may be hostages down there. You're not going to recover them all. Unfortunately, I predict that a number of hostages will never be returned because their drowned, bloated bodies will be down in some sealed antechamber 50 feet below, the water line. And then they'll have to send divers into the Hamas tunnels, I suppose. They should be doing is using heavier than air gas to fill them up or something like that, but I guess they figured it wasn't economically feasible. Just rig up a bunch of diesel generators and vent the exhaust right down into the sewage system, and it'll take care of things pretty quick, but I guess maybe it's too expensive. Hamas would blow up the generators or something like that. Not exactly sure why. Anyway, Israel continues, unleashing 2,000-pound explosives over Gaza, ripping apart entire blocks, by the way, in the process. You have incidents where Israeli soldiers appear to have ignored orders and shot civilians on purpose. That's not official IDF doctrine, but I mean, there was one instance in which Israeli hostages waving a white flag were trying to surrender and were yelling at the IDF soldiers in Yiddish, and they still shot them. It appears that there have been more than a few incidents of this sort of thing happening. These are just the ones that we've heard about. A couple sniped in a church the other day, etc., etc. Hamas, of course, continues rocket attacks and bombings and deploying IEDs and so forth all around the general region. Biden has repeatedly attempted to tell the Israelis that the situation is very unhelpful, and they're not listening to him. Now, I bet anything, if Donald Trump were the U.S. president right now, and he told Bibi Netanyahu, hey, this is becoming a little bit much, you killed 10 to 1 already, and you're admitting openly that 2 to 1 of those people are civilians. It's time to try to restore order as opposed to simply indiscriminately bombing all of Gaza City into wreckage and ruination. So could you please, withdraw some of the forces, reorganize, do what you need to do, but enough of the indiscriminate bombing campaign. I bet Netanyahu would listen. Number one, because he respects him, because Trump is actually respected by leaders in parts of the world where war is more an interior than exterior thing. You got to understand the dynamic is different between diplomacy between like the United States and Israel, or the U.S. and Russia, or North Korea or something, or China. Totally different from when you go and you have wine with Emmanuel Macron. Totally different from then when you go and eat blood sausage in Germany, or you're visiting with the Dutch Prime Minister or something. Western and Eastern nations just don't function the same. What works for one doesn't work for another. Trump has done business all over the world. He knows that you need a different approach depending on what country you're talking to. Biden treats Netanyahu as though he was just another Emmanuel Macron or a Justin Trudeau. He expects that simply asking kindly and nicely is going to get that done. Israel, as long as the United States doesn't outright condemn its behavior, is going to continue, because they have no reason to listen to Biden. By the way, if they do withdraw, what assurance do the Israeli people have? I sympathize with them on this. What assurance under a Biden administration do you have that if you pull back out of Gaza, Hamas doesn't reorganize and reinvade you with paragliders again? The United States isn't going to do jack shit about it. The United States says, well, we are wholeheartedly dedicated to the defense of the Israeli people, praise Judaism, but then don't follow through with it. Words don't work as well as actions in certain parts of the world, Mr. Biden. But he's out to lunch. He's a puppet. And Netanyahu knows that too. He knows that Joe Biden barely even gets to choose the color of his socks in the morning. Jill gives him his nap and his prune smoothie and shit, and tells him where to go. Sometimes quite literally because he's wandering off in the wrong direction, appearing not to know where he is. Why would you rely on the nation that's run by that dude to come to your aid if you need it? No, you're going to go all in and use full force. And you can't really be blamed for it because the one diplomatic guarantor of your even your existence against an enemy that proclaims that it does want to wipe you off the face of the earth is led by a dude who's out to lunch. If I was Jewish, I wouldn't feel necessarily the safest saying, yeah, let's rely on big buddy US to guard us. That seems like a prudent decision right now, you know, after the wonderful time that was the Afghanistan withdrawal, or what's happening in Ukraine. You know, Biden gets elected, and all of a sudden they get invaded again, just like they did under Obama, but it never happened for those 4 years in the middle. It's inexplicable. The liberals tell me that's because Trump is a Russian pawn. That doesn't really make sense. I don't understand why you wouldn't invade when your puppet is on the throne, because then you don't suffer shit for it. Apparently those Russians have a little, it's a reverse, you know, they did a little bit of a reversal in their minds, I guess. They're trying to do psyops, those devious Russians, just like spy versus spy. Biden is failing, mainly because he doesn't have any private experience in the boardroom. Trump succeeded mainly because he was a businessman before he was a politician. That's the long and short of it. I would like to see the fighting end in Gaza too, but I suspect that it's not going to until Biden is out of office. Because again, diplomatically speaking, you got to realize that the list of allies Israel has is pretty short. Other countries will vote in their favor mainly because they're part of the US sphere, not because they like Israel. And then people are protesting and governments gripe about them behind their backs as well and in public and say, yeah, we'll vote in favor of recognizing your right to exist, but we're not going to vote in favor of, you know, not recognizing Palestine. It sort of keeps the two-state thing going. By the way, there's no solution in that part of the world anymore. Two-state solution, one-state solution, any solution is bad. I don't see it ending ever, really. Minus one side destroying the other, or forcing them out entirely. Even if the Israelis, though, were to expel every Muslim in Israel and all the Palestinians from that piece of land, and say, no, we're just going to be a Jewish state now. We're not doing the right of return thing anymore either, because some of those groups of people, they're Jewish by sub-ethnicity, but they're not necessarily by practice, or they are by practice but not race or whatever, and they're trying to be more insular. Even if that were to happen, Hamas would regroup on the border of whatever country you put them in, and the attacks would continue. It would just be a little bit easier to defend against them because you wouldn't have Gaza and the West Bank existing anymore. Let's say that Hamas overran the Israelis. Israel collapses and it becomes just Palestine. Well, then you have probably a socialist authoritarian state full of rape and shit like that. Well, that's not necessarily a better alternative either, and you've still killed millions of people. So where's this solution? A two-state solution isn't going to work because neither side wants to cede any land. Israel cedes Gaza, and now they've re-annexed Gaza. The West Bank's given to the Palestinians, but then settlers move in. Repeatedly, Arafat and the other Muslim leaders rejected Jewish overtures. Israel has repeatedly rejected overtures from the PLO/Hamas. They just don't get along. Normally, American leadership is capable of keeping it at a simmer instead of boiling over. But that requires that we have leadership that is reasonably competent. We don't right now, and that's why wars are breaking out all over the world, and potentially more wars coming. Taiwan, Guyana, other places looking to pop off. Look at Niger. The French just fully withdrew and ended their colonial oppression of the people of Niger. Or Niger, rather. The problem is that now they're going to get overrun by Boko Haram, but okay. Yay, we got rid of the colonialists. We'll end up like another Haiti, but yay, at least we have self-determination until everything collapses to the point where the Clinton Foundation, the Red Cross, and the IMF are here griping and embezzling our money. How wonderful. That's about all. Peace out.